I would like to start this off with just reinforcing our theme for this evening. Hope is rising for International Sanctuary. And I am just thrilled that we're gathering once again, the first time in-person gathering to celebrate not only our 15-year anniversary, but first time we've been together since 2019. Hope is rising because three things that come to mind when I think about this organization and what is unique. First of all, our 15-year history has convicted us that we understand how to walk alongside women escaping human trafficking on their unique journey to freedom, and you're going to hear more about that. It has also equipped us to be one of the largest employers of survivors of trafficking in the world. And believe me, we're not... And we're not nearly big enough in order to meet the challenge, and that's what you're going to hear more about tonight. And finally, we are inspired. Our 15 years has been inspiring every single day because all you have to do is visit a sanctuary. You don't see the past of our participants. You see joy, you see determination, you see teamwork, you see a lot of food sharing, lots of food sharing, which is like one of the best parts about visiting. And you see the promises of the future. So for those of you that haven't been part of the organization for the duration, and I know a lot of you guys have walked along a long time with us, I just want to share our history. Stephanie Polaro, who is our founder of the organization. And Stephanie, there's a picture of her with a couple of participants, started hearing about International Sanctuary, and get this, she was in the backyard of her parents' home in Fullerton reading a Marie Claire magazine. And she read about human trafficking in India for the first time. And she could not do anything. So she had to do whatever it took to get over to India. And that's a common theme you're going to hear through our entire 15 years, is that we do whatever it takes. So she did whatever she needed to do to get over to India a few times, reach out to the people like IJM, International Justice Mission, who were fighting trafficking on the front lines, and said, what is needed? Time and time again, what came back was employment. Employment is what is needed. She went back home, sold everything, did everything she needed to do to move to India, and started reaching out to the restoration homes, because we don't do rescue, we don't do shelter. What we do is reach into the restoration homes, into the shelter homes, start creating a relationship, and then invite them into an employment relationship with us. And so from that point, that's where International Sanctuary started. Early in one of her trips to India, she hooked up with our co-founder, Wendy Daly. And they made a pact that they were going to start this thing that nobody had ever heard about called a social enterprise, which is a business within a nonprofit. And Wendy would go back to the United States and create a market for jewelry handcrafted by survivors of trafficking, while Stephanie ran the program in India. So for the first 5 years, from 2007, our initial registration, until 2012, that's exactly what the focus was. Let's make sure that we perfect this model, understanding that we're talking about employment, we're talking about education, we're talking about community, and we're talking about wellness and healthcare. Let's perfect this model, and let's love these women like they've never been loved before, and let's create, really in many cases, being their first family, their first community. From that point, we're now at 2012, and we were getting a lot of requests in from partners throughout the world to bring the sanctuaries and our jobs into their, associated with their restoration homes. And so at that point, we launched an expansion initiative. And because Wendy was the one that was really, really passionate about expansion, she ended up leading the organization, and then Stephanie stepped down and then eventually out of the organization. Wendy did everything it possibly took in order to define an expansion strategy, get expansion capital. She was able to define the purpose brand, triple the sales of purpose in order to fund the jobs, and then also to be able to equip and strengthen the organization. And that's what our focus was until COVID hit. in March of 2020. So here we are, March 2020, and I wanted to give you a picture of, there's Steph, and there's Wendy. And in March in 2020 was when COVID hit, and Wendy had to come back. She barely made it out of Philippines before the airports shut down, and she had to make two of the hardest decisions that founders or leaders have to make. The first thing she did in partnership with the board was recommend that we contract our U.S. operations in order to send all of our capital overseas, all of our resources overseas, to support our participants in developing countries, because there is no CARES Act. There's no enhanced unemployment insurance. So at that point, our Orange County Sanctuary was closed, and I mean, that was a heartbreak. You want to start talking about a heartbreak for all of us involved with this organization, was to pull back from that commitment. The second thing that she did was she recommended to the board that she step down from the role as CEO and out of the organization to make room for the CEO that was necessary to move the organization forward. And I got to tell you, we are so, so grateful as a board, I think as a staff, that we have founders that not only have vision and determination, but also always have put the organization first. And for that, we'll be forever grateful. So for the next 9 months, and I don't know, if you guys have read our communication, you know the board needed a mulligan to get before they got Shannon. So we hired a CEO, and she realized that it was actually going to be a lot of work, and she gave us a good 6 weeks. And then it was like, oh, okay. So the staff, and you'll hear from at least Max Fernand, our international program director tonight, but the staff ran the organization for 9 months. And there's really two parts of International Sanctuary. There's the program component led by Max, and then there's the purpose jewelry component led by Deanne Weissman. And on the program side, Max and his team moved not employment, but education, community, and health online during COVID. And the sanctuaries were virtually closed, or open, closed, open, closed, open, closed, open, closed, and transportation was very, very hard. So we didn't do a lot of jewelry production, a little bit during that time frame. But during a time when research shows that around the world, survivors of trafficking were experiencing homelessness, hunger, and increased levels of depression, International Sanctuary supported 100% of their international participants paying living wages throughout the entire duration of COVID. And not only that, our education scores, literacy, as well as numeracy increased, and our reported scores of self-efficacy and self-esteem increased during that same time frame. I mean, just clearly a miracle, unbelievable. So then, on the jewelry side of the business, it's December 2020, we get our first TV spot. Now, you can only imagine how encouraging this was for us because 2 of the 3 of our channels are wiped out. We're not doing wholesale business. We're not doing events anymore. That's 65% of our revenue that we don't have access to. So we've got Deanne working. We actually laid her off, but she refused to not work. Like the best, worst employee ever. So she joined, or continued to work with the organization, and she worked with Max and Alex. Alex, where are you? Okay, Alex is the assistant program director, and she's got a whole great story that she could share with you. Anyway, so Deanne and Alex on the program side, figured out how to do this weird kind of Apollo 13 thing where it's like, how do we take the jewelry designs that we have, because we don't have a jewelry designer anymore, and how do we take the raw materials that we've got in our sanctuaries because we don't have the markets anymore, and how do we adapt that to be consistent with fashion-forward trends, and then how do we figure out how to get those made when the sanctuaries aren't open? So figure that one out. That was COVID for us over and over and over again. So like a lot of retailers, we were able to sell through online, and through Deanne's leadership and an incredible team, we were actually able to increase our online sales significantly every year. So Deanne, wherever you are, rock star. So that kind of catches you up to the current. And now let's talk about the future. And in order to do that, I think we have to return our focus back to the lovely women that we work with. And here's a quote by one of our women. And I'd like you to read this. I'll give you a couple of minutes because I really want you to understand what an incredible statement she's making about her worthiness, her purpose, her hope. And it doesn't start with her. It also means her daughters, her sisters, her nieces, her family, her community that she impacts. So the multiplier effect of the hundreds and hundreds of women that we've worked with over the years is untold. And we know that research shows that when you invest in a woman, the payback for the family and the community is many, many-fold. So as we think about our future, we as a board asked Shannon to ask the same question that Stephanie asked in the early 2000s, meaning what's the need, what's the gap? Resoundingly, what came back to us was that we need jobs. The demand for jobs, which are the pathway to true freedom, forever freedom, that and a loving community, the demand far outweighs the supply. And so we're here tonight to share with you our commitment and our plans to do everything we can do to increase the social enterprise sales so that we can increase our direct employment, to link survivors and equip them up to jobs in the commercial sector because those are the job creators, and to make sure that the community for a survivor doesn't end at the point of a 1 or 2 fixed-year program, which we've never had a fixed-year program because each journey is unique, but that community continues forever. Because what is a speed bump for you and me in terms of life's challenges is a wall for our survivors, and they need access to social capital. They need access to people who can help and mentor them and help guide them going forward. So in close, I would like to share with you a picture I took in Nepal in 2013. I was on a trip there with my husband, Brian. We were really exposed for the first time to the realities of human trafficking. And this was graffiti on a wall, and it was towards the end of our trip, and I'm like, you can't not know this stuff. And we gotta be that somebody. So we came back to Orange County. We did a lot of research about the organizations, and then we met International Sanctuary and what they're doing, and it blew us away and continues to blow us away. The level of commitment to do whatever it takes to help a woman succeed is phenomenal. So I want to thank you. Thank you for knowing that the world cannot be better unless it's better for each and every one of us. Thank you for being here tonight. You have to know that your hope and your commitment and your generosity fuels our own. So thank you so much.